Hello everybody, it's Molly with AllEars and I'm here today with a brand new video. One of the biggest questions that we get asked right now, what is Walt Disney World like? What is it like going right now in 2021? Is it different? Is it still magical? What kind of rules am I going to deal with? What's the entertainment like? What is going on? So that's what this video is here to answer for you. We've been covering the Disney parks and the Universal parks since they reopened last summer, and this is what it's like to go to Walt Disney World in 2021. I hope you're ready. I hope you're excited. We got a lot to cover. Now, before we get really into this video, I do want to let you know it's going to be a little bit different than some of my videos in the past. We are trying to give all of you who asked a comprehensive view of what it's like to go to Disney World right now. This is everything we've learned since the reopening last summer. These are our tips, our tricks. So some of this information might be repeat information if you've been watching religiously or you've been watching all the time. But this is supposed to be your complete guide to going to Walt Disney World right now, help you figure out what do I need to know? What's it going to be like? Should I go? That's what this video is all about. So I hope you enjoy it, and I just wanted to let you know before we get into it. Let's talk about all the health and safety regulations first and foremost. First things first, the parks are still at a limited capacity. The last numbers they shared were 35% capacity. To help control this, you do have to book a park pass reservation in addition to having a ticket. So you not only have to buy a ticket or have an annual pass, link it up to your My Disney Experience account, but then you have to make a park pass reservation for each day you want to go into the parks. So we have lots of videos on this, we have lots of posts on this that we can link for you, but the Park Pass reservation system ensures that only a limited number of guests get into the park each day. The hardest Park Pass reservation to get is Disney's Hollywood Studios, but you can keep checking back, you can kind of fiddle-faddle, keep checking back. The way they organize the Park Pass reservations are there's different allotments for resort guests, for ticket holders, and then for annual pass holders. So that's the biggest change as far as attending the parks actually goes right now. Today is a very, very slow day, so you can see there's not a lot of people around right here. This looked very, very different when I was here during the holidays. Even though they're still at a limited capacity, there are natural pinch points and places within the parks that are going to get congestion, especially at parks like Disney's Hollywood Studios, which don't have as open of a layout. So keep that in mind as well. You may want to avoid some of these places. A huge pinch point at Magic Kingdom is right near Small World and Peter Pan's Flight, near the Tangled bathrooms. That tends to be a pinch point. Galaxy's Edge can be a pinch point at Hollywood Studios. Some of the more narrow walkways in World Showcase can be a pinch point over at Epcot, especially if you've got a lot of people waiting in lines or eating and drinking stations. So there could still be some crowds. Still try and come. It's always best to try and come during the off-peak seasons, even with limited capacity, because you'll be able to get more done and there won't be a lot of people around. Another thing to keep in mind with limited capacity, it's not just limited capacity in the parks in general, there's limited capacity in things like buildings, shops, restaurants, shows. So you may end up waiting in lines for more than just rides. At busy shops, especially towards the end of the night, shops like the Emporium or Mouse Gear, they may actually get lines to even get in the shops. Popular shops that are a little bit smaller, such as the Frontierland Trading Post here, Memento Mori, the Haunted Mansion store, some of the shops in Epcot, they're so small that they may have lines just to get in. The pavilion at Mexico, the Pyramid Pavilion, gets a line a lot, especially on the weekends. I've seen it upwards of 2 hours just to get in the pavilion before you're even in line to buy a drink at La Cava or to go on Grand Fiesta Tour. So keep in mind that you will likely wait in a line for something that's not just a ride. Some places are doing virtual lines to combat this. A lot of places at Disney Springs, such as some of the new dessert shops like Everglazed and Gideon's, the cookie shop, World of Disney can go to a virtual line. A couple of the stores in Galaxy's Edge will go to a virtual line where you'll actually submit your, you'll sign up on your phone, you'll get a text message with an estimated time and then a text to return, so which is actually great. Especially Gideon's, very, very popular. It could be hours before you could get in there. It's not like you have to actually stand in line for hours. You just have to be on the virtual line and they'll text you when it's your turn. Another safety regulation that you will notice when you are at Walt Disney World is that there are temperature checks before you enter the Disney theme parks, as well as Disney Springs, or go to do a sit-down restaurant at a Disney resort. You will have to go through these temp checks either at the Transportation Ticket Center or right outside the park itself, or at the restaurant itself. Anyone with a 100.4 or higher will not be admitted. If you do have a temperature higher than that, maybe it's a little bit, maybe it's hot from walking around or something like that, they do have a little cool-off tent at the temperature checks before each park. Just sit at that, they'll give you a bottle of water and you can try again. But unfortunately, if it's still above 100.4, you and your party will not be allowed in. Another thing you'll notice around the parks, which actually something I hope that sticks around for a long time, is they've implemented portable hand washing stations and hand sanitizer stations all over the place. So you'll see the portable sinks from time to time, but you'll definitely see that hand sanitizer. They should have it at every store, every restaurant, and every queue before and after you get on the ride. So those are things I hope stick around. But just the same, I definitely recommend bringing your own hand sanitizer, just in case you need it somewhere else. Maybe one of the Disney ones is out, and sometimes it's kind of sticky. I don't like it that much. I still use it, but I prefer the brands that I like. So I always recommend keeping one on you too, but you will see sinks and hand sanitizer everywhere. Probably the most notable and talked about safety regulation though is, of course, facial coverings. You do have to wear a facial covering. Everyone 2 and older has to wear a facial covering to visit a Walt Disney World theme park right now, as well as Disney Springs, as well as the Disney resorts. You cannot have valves on it, you cannot have gaiters on it. If you do not wear a face mask, you will not be allowed into the park. If you are in the park and you won't wear your face mask, you will be asked to leave. There are also tons of cast members out reminding you to wear it properly, aka above your nose, and to make sure that you are following the rules when it comes to face masks. At Walt Disney World, you must leave your face mask on for photos. And there are cast members at iconic places such as the castle making sure that guests are following along with the rules. The only time you do not have to wear your face mask is when you are actively eating or drinking and you are stationary and away from other guests. This means if you're dining at a restaurant, they have limited capacity in the restaurant so that they can space all the tables out, or certain tables will be marked unavailable so that you're at least 6 feet apart when you're in the restaurants. Sitting at your table, you can take your mask off. If you're eating a snack, if you've got a popcorn, if you've got a Mickey bar, a Dole Whip, you have to find a space 6 feet away from other people, stand still, and then you can remove your face mask while you're actively eating or drinking only. You can't walk around and be eating and drinking with your mask off. Originally, that was the rule. If you were actively eating or drinking and away from other people, you could be walking and drinking out of your water bottle. Unfortunately, some people ruin it for everyone, and people were just walking around carrying empty water bottles and not wearing their masks, claiming that they were drinking. So they had to change the rule to say that you had to be stationary. Another more recent update to the mask policy is that once you are inside a queue for a ride or attraction and inside the standard part of the queue, you are no longer allowed to eat or drink in line, even if you are stationary and 6 feet apart from others. Again, people were taking advantage of the rule and they were bringing in full snacks, full meals, and then just walking through the whole queue with their mask off, claiming that they were eating. So if you get a snack or a big coffee, like I used to do, and intend to drink it throughout the line, even though you're going to stop every 6 feet, you cannot do that any longer. There are no exceptions to this rule. A lot of people ask that about if you have issues wearing a face mask or disabilities. There are no exceptions to the rule. If you are 2 or older, you are required to wear a face mask the entire time, again, unless you're actively eating or drinking while stationary and distanced from others. So because of that, I highly recommend playing around with different masks at home, finding a brand you like, finding a material you like. Maybe it's homemade ones. Most of mine come from my aunt. People ask me a lot, but she made me a bunch of them and they're wonderful. Maybe it is some of the ones you buy from Disney online or Universal online. Maybe it is the disposable single-use ones. Figure out what works for you and then test it out at home. Go to the grocery store, go on walks. If you cannot go on a 10-minute walk without a mask being uncomfortable, you're not going to like coming to Walt Disney World where it's 1 million degrees and you're expected to wear it all day. For me at this point, I've been coming so much with a mask on, I truly don't even notice it really anymore. There are times I get in my car and forget to take it off right away. So for me, not a huge deal. But I also come alone. I don't come with little kids who may have an issue with the mask. And I'm so used to it now. I'm also very used to the Florida humidity in general because I live here, that it's not a shock to me. So keep all these things in mind when you're deciding if you want to come visit right now. Another thing we got to talk about when you talk about Disney World in 2021, dining. What is dining like in Disney World right now? Now, the first thing I have to tell you, there is still no return date for the Disney dining plan. The Disney dining plan did not start back up when the parks reopened, and again, we don't know when it's coming back. So if you're used to being on the Disney dining plan, you're gonna have to adjust a little bit how you do your dining, because again, no Disney dining plan. As of right now, there is no date for when the dining plan will be coming back. A big thing when it comes to dining that you need to know is that not every restaurant has reopened at this point. Some fan favorite restaurants are still closed. Right now, Casey's Corner at the Magic Kingdom is still closed. Jico over at Animal Kingdom Lodge is still closed. Boma at Animal Kingdom Lodge. Ohana over at the Polynesian. Trader Sam's over at the Polynesian. So as some of those resorts are still closed, a lot of their dining options are still closed. And there are some fan favorites in the parks that still haven't reopened. There's also a lot of places that are only open on the weekends or only open select days or times of day just because of the lower capacity. It doesn't make sense to operate these restaurants all the time. So things like the spring roll cart that everybody loves at Magic Kingdom may only be open on the weekends or not open at all during the slower times of year. So if there is a snack, if there is a restaurant that you are dying to eat at, you will make or break your vacation whether or not you eat this. Definitely do your research to find out if it's going to be open and when it's going to be open, so you don't get over to Magic Kingdom so excited to have those spring rolls only to find out you're there on a Tuesday and they're not open. A big push with the health and safety concerns right now is definitely mobile order. At most of the quick service restaurants, you can mobile order using the My Disney Experience app, and a lot of restaurants are basically requiring that you do this to cut down on contact when you are in the parks with the cast members, keep everybody spaced out. So when you are using mobile order, my biggest tip to you is eat off peak season. Everybody is going to go eat at peak time. Everybody wants to eat between 11:30 and 1:30 for lunch, and everybody wants to eat between 6 and 7:30 for dinner. So if you can go in those kind of mid-afternoon or a little bit earlier in the morning, you're going to have a lesser wait, especially at places like Pecos Bills, Docking Bay 7, Woody's Lunchbox. Those are really, really popular restaurants. Sometimes, in fact, it'll be noon and you won't even be able to pick an arrival window at Woody's Lunchbox until 2 because they're too overwhelmed with orders. So plan to eat at off-peak times and you're going to have a lesser wait at those popular restaurants. Of course, a big part of dining is character dining, and there are some character dining experiences that have reopened, but they are definitely a little bit different. So right now you can do character dining here at the Garden Grill inside of Epcot for lunch or dinner, which is Mickey and Pluto and Chip and Dale. This is that restaurant that slowly rotates inside the Living with the Land. It is served family style, which has always been the case here. Over at the Contemporary Resort, you can go to Chef Mickey's for breakfast only right now. That used to be a buffet, but it is a family style meal as well now. And that's your Fab Five, so Mickey, Minnie, Pluto, Donald, Goofy. That's a great one. Over at Topolino's Terrace at the Riviera Resort, you've got Mickey, Minnie, Donald, and Daisy. That one is served plated. That's how that one's always been. And over at Hollywood Studios, you've got Hollywood and Vine, which used to be a buffet. Now it is plated, and you've got Mickey and Minnie and Goofy and Pluto. No Donald at that one, but that one's really fun because it's a seasonal dine. So like at Halloween, they'll be in Halloween costumes, and during Christmas time, they'll be in their Christmas outfits. And that one, as well as Chef Mickey's, that went from buffet to plated, their food has gotten a lot better. It's very impressive. But as far as any other character dining going, Cinderella's Royal Table is open. However, only Cinderella may appear. They're not princesses coming to your table. Akershus hasn't reopened. Pretoria al Forno hasn't reopened. Crystal Palace has reopened, but there aren't any characters there. So there is character dining, but it is limited. Now, what's different about character dining? For starters, the characters are not going to come straight to your table. They are going to stay a safe distance away from you. You can take selfies with them, you can pose with them, but they aren't going to come to your table and give you hugs or anything like that like you may be used to. That also means they're not signing anything. So at the end of your meal, you're going to get a card that's been signed by all the characters because they're not doing autographed books. For me, I think they've done a very good job doing these abridged character dining experiences. I've been to all of them as they've slowly reopened. My personal favorites, I always loved Topolino's Terrace, and I still think that one has the best food. But I was very impressed with the food at Chef Mickey's and Hollywood and Vine. And the food here at Garden Grill has always been great. So it's a little bit different. It's still expensive. So if you're expecting them to come over to your table and give you a big hug, That's unfortunately not going to happen, but you are going to get a lot of FaceTime with the characters, and because there's limited capacity, every meal I've been to, I've gotten to see the characters. They've come around multiple times. So if you've got little ones that love the characters, this is probably your best bet as to getting up close with some of these iconic characters. Mickey, Minnie, the gang, they're only going to be in the Cavalcades otherwise, so if you want some actual pictures with them and things, I think character dining is a good way to go. But again, it is expensive and it's not the same as it used to be, so it's totally up to each family to decide if it's something they want to do. We got to talk about the Walt Disney World resorts, because that's another big difference 2021 versus prior years. As of right now, not every Walt Disney World resort has reopened. In fact, a lot of fan favorite resorts haven't reopened fully. I'm talking about the Beach Club, the Animal Kingdom Lodge, Jambo House, Port Orleans, both French Quarter and Riverside, the Wilderness Lodge, Polynesian Village Resort, as well as the All-Star Resorts. None of these resorts have reopened. Now, at a few of these resorts, the Disney Vacation Club sections have reopened. So, for example, at Animal Kingdom Lodge, Kidani Village, DVC villas have reopened, but Jambo House, the main part of the resort, hasn't reopened yet. So you may not have as much choice when it comes to booking your Walt Disney World vacation right now. You may not get to stay at the resort you want to because it's simply not open and not available right now. As of the making of this video, All-Star Movies is set to reopen at the end of March. The Beach Club main area is set to reopen at the end of May. Wilderness Lodge main rooms are set to be open at the beginning of June, and the Polynesian Village is set to reopen sometime in summer 2021. You may not get to stay exactly where you want to stay because they're simply not available. And speaking of the Polynesian Village, it's been going under a huge refurbishment as they make over the lobby and the entrance area, and they're adding in some Moana-inspired elements. Now, talking about the rooms themselves, I have stayed at several Disney resort hotel rooms since the parks have reopened. They are doing intensive cleaning. They are doing things like putting the remotes in plastic bags. They have high-touch areas that they are focusing on, handles, drawers, all of those sort of things when it comes to cleaning at the Disney World Resort. So they've enhanced the safety protocols, and I felt very comfortable staying at the Walt Disney World Resort rooms. Another big factor to think about when you talk about a Disney World Resort is the transportation. So of course, complimentary transportation is still available from all of the resorts to all of the parks, as well as Disney Springs, but it may look a little bit different. For example, right now the Epcot monorail is not running. So if you're staying at a Magic Kingdom monorail resort and you plan to go to Epcot, you're going to have to take a bus because you can no longer, as of right now, jump on the monorail, transfer the TTC, and get over to Epcot. You also have to keep in mind that with the limited capacity on things such as monorails, boats, and buses, you may find yourself waiting for several to go by before they can actually load you on there. When I stayed at the Polynesian Village in a DVC room prior to the Magic Kingdom reopen, 3 different monorails went by before I actually got on one, even though I was in line very early just because of the limited capacity. Now, Disney has taken some safety measures to increase capacity on these different forms of transportation, but you need to keep that in mind. Buses have limited capacity, boats have limited capacity, monorails have limited capacity, and the Skyliner, well, that one's still running pretty quickly since it never stops moving. But when you're going from your resort to anywhere on property, you need to allot extra time just because it could take longer than you're used to, and you don't want to find yourself running late for a reservation or to get into the park if you're trying to get there early. Speaking of getting to the parks early, when Walt Disney World reopened last summer, they announced that Extra Magic Hours were no longer available. If you're unfamiliar, Extra Magic Hours is that resort guest perk when you get to go into one of the Disney World parks an hour early or stay up to 3 hours late. And this was one of the big perks of staying at a Walt Disney World resort. When the parks reopened again, that was not available. However, Disney recently announced that early park hours would be available. There is not a start date as of right now, but Disney has made it clear that this is not Extra Magic Hours, except for it kind of is, except for it's only a half an hour in the mornings before the park opens. We've got more information on AllEars.net, and as we get more information about this, such as when this is going to be started, what parks, how to know, is there a capacity issue, can you hop, all the questions everybody has, when we know the answers, we'll definitely share them with you. So let's talk about what resorts are open right now. For starters, all of the DVC, Disney Vacation Club properties are available, and this does include the villas at resorts that aren't open yet. So again, you could stay at Kidani Village at Animal Kingdom Lodge, you could stay in Copper Creek or Boulder Ridge at Wilderness Lodge, just the main parts of those resorts are not open yet. And as another friendly reminder, anybody can stay in a Disney Vacation Club room. You do not have to be a DVC member. Of course, it is subject to availability like any other hotel room, but you can book them the same way you'd book any other hotel room, or you can rent DVC points, which is a very economical way to stay stay at a nice Disney resort. A lot of people don't realize that. We recommend working with DVC Rentals by David. We can link that for you. Talking about which resorts are open right now, Pop Century and Art of Animation are your value resorts that are open right now until the All-Stars open up. Moderate resorts, Caribbean Beach, Coronado Springs, Fort Wilderness, those are all open. And as far as your deluxe resorts go, you've got the Yacht Club, you've got the Grand Floridian, the Contemporary. Did I get them all? I think I got them all. One of the biggest changes at Walt Disney World right now is entertainment, particularly characters. Parades aren't happening and character meet and greets aren't happening as we remember them. Replacing parades and character meet and greets are character cavalcades that they have at all 4 of the theme parks. These are random pop-up events where a few characters, maybe in a float, a car, a boat over at Animal Kingdom, pop up, jaunt down the street. You can wave at them and it's really exciting. But again, you never know when they're gonna happen because they wanna avoid crowds gathering. Here at the Magic Kingdom, they had specialty ones for the different holidays, Halloween and Christmas. And then during the normal time of year, they've got one with Mickey and the Friends. They've got one led by Goofy. They have a princess one, a Tinkerbell one, and one with Fantasyland Friends with a hodgepodge of fun characters like Winnie the Pooh and Alice in Wonderland and Peter Pan. Over at Epcot, you've got the cavalcades again. You have a Frozen one with Anna and Elsa, so if you've got littles that want to see Anna and Elsa, you've got to go over to Epcot. They've also got one with Classic Friends as well as a Princess Cavalcade there. At Hollywood Studios, they've got Classic Friends, Disney Junior Friends, and a Pixar one, which is my favorite because the Pixar characters are riding in cool convertibles designed like them, and there's a Buzz Lightyear one. And then again at Animal Kingdom, you've got character boats going on the river. So you've got Rafiki and Timon from The Lion King, Pocahontas, Donald, Daisy, Launchpad McQuack, Mickey, Minnie, Pluto, Goofy, Chip, and Dale. They will come by on boats, so make sure if you're at Animal Kingdom, look out by the waterways if you want to see some characters. Personally, I think the cavalcades are really fun. I like them as an addition to entertainment here. I don't know if I'd say I like them more than a parade, but I like them as something that, well, we can't have parades, and I like them as an addition to places like Hollywood Studios and Epcot that don't have a parade normally. So it's really fun to be in Epcot, just like enjoying a festival, enjoying a snack or a drink, and then, oh my gosh, all of a sudden Mickey or Elsa rides by. So I do think they're really fun. In addition to cavalcades, there are distance meet and greets certain places throughout the parks. So you may see some characters up on the train station here at Magic Kingdom. In fact, I did a video on how many characters you can actually find in the Magic Kingdom right now, and it's over 30. So there's a lot of characters to be found in the Magic Kingdom. Over at Hollywood Studios, you may see some of the Star Wars characters at a distance in Galaxy's Edge. Over in Epcot, you may see Mary Poppins or Alice in the United Kingdom out in the gazebo or off in a garden. So the characters still very much have a presence in the parks. It's just a little different than we're used to. And again, it's not the same as getting to hug Mickey and get him to sign your autograph book, but it is always really exciting to see Mickey or your favorite character when you're in the parks, and I'm glad that they figured out a way to work them in, even if it's not quite the same. Hi, Stitch, how are you? You having fun? Can we take a selfie? Okay. Cheese. Hi, Buzz. I love you so much. Can we take a selfie? Yeah. Cheese. For me, one of the biggest changes about coming to Walt Disney World right now is the lack of entertainment. Live entertainment is few and far between, and that's felt nowhere as much as here at Disney's Hollywood Studios. Right now they have a modified version of the Frozen Sing-Along, which I actually adore and think you should check out. They've got a modified version of the Disney Junior Dance Party. Over at Animal Kingdom, they've got a modified version of the Bird Show. It's called Feathered Friends in Flight. There's no more characters in it, and it's just about birds. But overall, that's kind of it when it comes to entertainment, excluding the characters and those distance meet and greets. There's no Festival of the Lion King. There's no Voyage of the Little Mermaid. There's no Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular. There's no fireworks. There's no parades. There's no orchestra playing at the Grand Floridian. There's no live music in the streets. So for me, losing entertainment is probably one of the biggest differences, and one of the reasons I think a lot of people are waiting, because if it's your first visit and you're not seeing fireworks at the Magic Kingdom, you know, you have to decide if that's something important to you. For me, fireworks are amazing. Fantasmic is amazing. Festival of the Lion King is amazing. These are some of my favorite things about Disney World in general, and they're not happening right now, and we have no idea when they're coming back. You can especially feel that there's no entertainment at parks like Disney's Hollywood Studios and Animal Kingdom because the lines get a little bit longer, because normally at this park in particular, thousands of people are being sucked up every hour in those big amphitheaters. Indiana Jones, Beauty and the Beast, Voyage of the Little Mermaid, etc. And they're not right now, so the lines at the attractions are longer and longer. So for me, entertainment is a big thing that's still missing from Walt Disney World. I enjoy what they've done. I enjoy the modified cavalcades, but it's definitely not the same as seeing Festival of the Lion King or Fantasmic or fireworks. Disney just announced that coming this summer is the return of Festival of the Lion King. I literally just recorded that. I'm so sad it's not here, and it's coming back. They haven't announced when exactly. They just said this summer. It's going to be a modified version of the show, but this is very, very exciting news. And I will be there from dawn until dusk, just watching the same show over and over and over again as many times as I can and crying the whole time. So I can't wait for that. Let's talk about rides. Obviously, rides are a huge part of coming to Walt Disney World. So what are the rides like? Are they any different? Are they the same? How are they distancing on the rides? Rides is a huge question we get asked about when it comes to Disney World right now. First things first, there is no FastPass Plus currently, and as of right now, we have no idea when it will come back. So the only way to go on an attraction is to just wait in the regular standby line. But remember, we are at limited capacity, so the lines typically are going to be a little bit shorter than they would before the closure. Now I say typically because at certain parks and at certain times of year, that's not really the case. For example, here at Hollywood Studios, there are so many A+ e-ticket headliner attractions that they all have really long lines, especially on the weekends or during the busier time. You're going to have to wait at least an hour for at least something, considering we've got Rock and Roller Coaster, Tower of Terror, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, Smuggler's Run, Slinky Dog Dash. These are all big, huge, big, popular attractions, and because there's not a lot else to do in this park right now, you're gonna wait in a line for at least one of them. Typically, we see the longest lines over at Magic Kingdom for Splash Mountain and Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. We'll also see longer lines for Pirates of the Caribbean, Jungle Cruise, It's a Small World sometimes, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, and Space Mountain. So basically, your most popular attractions going to have those longest lines. At Epcot, the longest lines we typically see are for Soarin' or for Frozen Ever After. And at Animal Kingdom, we typically actually see the longest line is for Navi River Journey, just because their load process is slower than some others. And then you'll see Flight of Passage will get long, Kilimanjaro Safaris, Dinosaur, Everest. Those will get long too, but Navi's usually the longest at Animal Kingdom, surprisingly. A big thing to know about the queues themselves is that you are going to be socially distanced throughout the queues. They're going to have those markers on the ground every 6 feet. Sometimes the queues are going to get really, really long because of this. They're going to go and take some crazy pathways. For example, Peter Pan's flight over at Magic Kingdom often weaves into the still closed Columbia Harbor House to make room. The Tower of Terror queue here will go back towards the Fantasmic Amphitheater. The lines are going to look very, very long, but they are not usually as long as you think they are because, again, everybody has to space out 6 feet, and oftentimes the lines are overestimated with how long you're actually waiting. I did videos in all 4 of the Disney theme parks and Universal where I clocked the wait times versus the posted wait times, and in every park there was a discrepancy. The least discrepancy was here at Hollywood Studios, but over at Magic Kingdom, Animal Kingdom, and Epcot, I saw a big discrepancy versus what was posted versus what I actually waited. Now, I'm not saying every time you ride a ride it's going to be half as long as it says it's going to be, but there is a chance it could be a little bit shorter. Another question we get asked a lot of the times, is Rider Swap working? Is Disability Access Service working? Yes, both of those services are working as they were prior to the closure, so if you need to take advantage of Rider Swap, if you've got someone that's not tall enough to ride one of these big attractions, or you're someone that uses the Disability Access Service Program, DAS is the abbreviation, you can still use those. We've got posts on how to use Rider Swap. Go to Guest Relations if you need to use Disability Access Service, but you will likely still be using the FastPass entrance at the attractions, which if you are not using those programs and you see someone going through FastPass, they don't have a FastPass, they are likely using one of those 2 different services. So what's different on the attractions? Are they still the same attractions I know and love? Are there any modifications? Yes and no. It definitely depends on the attraction, but one of the biggest changes you're going to see are there aren't really any pre-shows. So attractions like Tower of Terror, where you have that pre-show normally where you're in the library and the Twilight Zone intro comes on with Rod Serling. Not happening right now. That library is just part of the queue. Same thing over at Rock and Roller Coaster. You're not going to go get to talk to Steven Tyler right now. Unfortunately, that recording session is part of the queue. Same thing over at Magic Kingdom with Haunted Mansion. The stretch room isn't happening right now. It's all stretched out and it's part of the queue. The reason for this is because they have to compact a lot of people into a small area. It would slow down the attraction queues a lot because they can only put a couple parties in there at a time, and it would just increase your wait by a lot. So you're also not going to get a pre-show over at Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, which is actually a bummer because it's really, really cool. You're not going to get a pre-show over at Smuggler's Run. You get an abbreviated pre-show at Flight of Passage. So those pre-shows are one of the things that are no longer happening. Another thing that's a little bit different on a bunch of the attractions is that there's a lot of plexiglass everywhere. I'm talking in the queues, there may be plexiglass dividing you and other parties so that you're not too close to each other, but there's also going to be plexiglass on a lot of ride vehicles. Plexiglass is often installed in between rows on boats or rows on cars, or it may even on the Tower of Terror elevators. There's plexiglass in between you and other people. Same thing with Soarin', there's actually plexiglass like every couple seats. The reason they're putting in plexiglass is it increases the capacity of how many people can get on the ride without social distancing. For example, when the parks first reopened, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway was only putting one party per car because of safety. So I got my own car. This made the attraction's wait time always over an hour, even on the slowest days, oftentimes more than that. And a lot of times they'd have to close the queue because it was so long, they couldn't actually fit any more people safely in there and distance them. Now on Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, they've added plexiglass dividers so they can seat more than one party per row throughout the vehicle. There's pros and cons to plexiglass in my opinion. If you're sitting in the back row of an attraction like Frozen Ever After, which tends to get wet, and you're trying to see through the plexiglass, you can't see as well. Or on Rise the Resistance, you can't see as well, or you may see your own reflection sometimes. So for me, it's definitely not as great of an experience as pre-closure, and I personally preferred it when they just put one party per car in there. I would rather have waited a little bit longer to have one party per car, but if you're trying to do a lot done, you don't have Fast Pass, it's a busy day, the plexiglass really does cut down on your waits. And on some attractions like Tower of Terror, like Soarin', it doesn't affect it at all. If there is one attraction that people have questions about, it's this one right behind me, Rise of the Resistance in Galaxy's Edge. This is that over-the-top, incredible Star Wars experience that opened up last December. And it's a little tricky to ride. You can't just get in line. So people are often asking us, what's the deal? They've changed the rules a bunch of times. It's not, it's a pretty complicated thing to get on for just an attraction. So let's talk about Rise of the Resistance. The way it works now is you can get a boarding group, and that is the only way to ride this attraction is with a boarding group. Even if you're trying to use Rider Switch, even if you're trying to use DAS, even if you're on a VIP tour, you have to have a boarding group to ride this attraction. And you get your boarding groups through the My Disney Experience app. At this time, the only way to get a Rise of the Resistance boarding group, there are 2 different time periods each day. Both of them, you need a Hollywood Studios Park Pass for anyone that wants to ride. So you can now get them at 7 a.m. from anywhere, your house, your resort, anywhere, as long as you have a Hollywood Studios Park Pass, 7 a.m. in the app from anywhere, or 1 p.m. inside the park. The way you get a boarding group is on the My Disney Experience home screen. This is what your Walt Disney World My Disney Experience home screen looks like. When you click that join, it's going to bring you this screen. You will then click continue, and it will be this screen, which unless it's 7 a.m. or 1 p.m. on the dot, this screen will say not boarding right now. So this is what I recommend doing. Before 7 a.m., like 15 minutes beforehand, click the first screen, click continue on the second screen, now you're in the third screen, back out of that. It shouldn't make you do that second screen again, and that will save you valuable time. At 7 a.m. on the dot, click join on your first screen. On this second screen, which was the third screen before, but now it's the second screen, click join. It will think for a second. Anyone that you are friends with in My Disney Experience, it will automatically select them as part of your party. Click continue down at the bottom. Do not worry about unchecking someone. If you've got someone you don't think is tall enough, if you've got someone who doesn't want to ride the ride, do not waste time unchecking them. Just click continue. It'll think again, and hopefully you'll have a boarding group on the next screen. Same thing at 1, Same process, go out, go in through it, and then back out again before you even try. You could have someone else with another phone hooked up to whatever space clock there is in the world, and exactly at like 7:00:01, click it. But those are my best tips. Do not be on the Disney Wi-Fi if you're at Walt Disney World. Be away from other people, and I believe in you. And also, may the force be with you, because it's completely a random lottery. But hopefully, if you're really fast, like I'm suggesting, you'll make it. Once your boarding group gets called later, you have 80 minutes to return. That could change. Sometimes we've seen 60 in the past. Originally, it's 2 hours, but right now it's 80 minutes to return. So if you're in the middle, so rude. If you're in the middle of a lunch reservation or something like that, and your group gets called, you don't have to run over. You've got some time to return. If you're a little bit late, again, save that boarding group screenshot and be nice to the cast members. But yeah, Rise of the Resistance, definitely the most in-demand ride in all of Disney World, and boarding groups are the only way to get on it. If you run into any issues, once you get your boarding group, screenshot if it gives you an unknown error that you're not sure of, screenshot once you actually get your boarding group, screenshot everything, because if there are any weird issues, I'm not saying guaranteed, but you may be able to go talk to guest relations, show them what happened, and they might be able to assist you. Might, maybe, those are the key words. Also, be nice to them, because if you're mean to them, they're definitely not going to help you. But if you have some weird technical glitch, something weird happens, they may be able to help you out if you can prove you were actually trying to get it right at the moment that you're supposed to. Now, another question we get, what if I'm a few minutes late? What if right when I get my notification, I've just sat down to dining? Screenshot that notification, and they should give you a little lead time. But don't be like hours and hours late, because they might not let you on. Okay, so I got my boarding group at 7 a.m. this morning from my bed, and now I'm gonna get ready to join the Resistance. Now, this is an attraction that is incredible. It's amazing. I absolutely recommend the hassle of trying to get it. In fact, I recommend having 2 Hollywood Studios Park Pass days booked. You can cancel and book a new Park Pass, so that way if you don't get Rise of the Resistance your first day, hello!
Is here.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining the cause.
Thank you. If Rise of the Resistance is super, super important to you, what my recommendation is, book 2 days worth of Park Passes at Hollywood Studios. You can always change your Park Pass day of, but that way if you don't get into it day 1, you can change that second Park Pass to another park. Or if you don't get one at 7 a.m., you can cancel your Hollywood Studios Park Pass since you haven't been in the park yet, and then book another park as long as it's available. One word of advice though, let's say you book 2 days in a row of Park Passes of Hollywood Studios. Day 1, you get up Rise of the Resistance boarding group, you're like, yes, this is the greatest thing ever, I'm gonna cancel tomorrow's Park Pass at Hollywood Studios and rebook it at Magic Kingdom. But then Rise of the Resistance breaks, it goes down, and you don't get to ride it. And then you try to rebook, change the next day back to Hollywood Studios, full. Do you see what I'm saying? This would be very sad. Rise of the Resistance, because it is so technically complicated, it goes down for technical difficulties a lot. That's why I'm in such a long line right now, even though I've already attached my boarding group, because it was down earlier, so all the people that were supposed to ride it earlier are now back in line. I wouldn't mess with my park passes until I'm physically on the ride, and then you can change it. So just something to keep in mind when you're planning out your days. Again, Hollywood Studios is the hardest park to book a pass for, so if you can book a couple of them and then change it to Epcot or Animal Kingdom or Magic Kingdom, that may be maybe a good move if getting on this attraction is a #1 must-do for you. Park hopping is back, but it's a little bit different than it was prior to the closures. Now, one thing that's not different, you still have to have park hopping on your ticket. You either have to have an annual pass or have added the park hopper option to whatever day ticket you are using. Now, the way it works now is that you still have to have one of those park pass reservations at whatever your first park is. Then starting at 2 p.m., you can park hop to which parks are available. You can figure out which parks are available by calling the Park Hopper hotline number. I did a whole video about park hopping that we can link for you here, but some things to keep in mind: if you are trying to park hop to Disney's Hollywood Studios, you are not going to be able to get a Rise of the Resistance boarding group. Rise of the Resistance boarding groups are either at 7 a.m. from anywhere or 1 p.m. inside the park. Either way, you have to have a Hollywood Studios Park Pass reservation. So if you're park hopping at 2, you're going to be after Rise of the Resistance, so you're not able to do that. Also, you have to visit your first park. You cannot make a park pass reservation here at Animal Kingdom and then not come and then try to go into Hollywood Studios at 2 p.m. They will not let you in. You have to go to your first reservation before you can hop. Disney transportation is available for those wanting to park hop that don't have a car. You can drive your own car. Keep in mind, if you've paid for parking, you don't have to pay again. You just have to pay once per day. But as far as Disney transportation goes, there are buses that are running from park to park. So you can get a bus at Animal Kingdom to Hollywood Studios, Epcot, Magic Kingdom, etc., etc. As of right now, the Epcot to Magic Kingdom monorail line is not operating. However, boats are running between Hollywood Studios and Epcot if you'd like to hop there, as well as the Skyliner is operating between Hollywood Studios and Epcot. For some, park hopping is not going to be worth it anymore with the limited park hours. If you can't park hop until 2 p.m. and the parks close anywhere from 6 to 9 p.m., that may not be enough time. So it's totally up to you. There's no right or wrong answer, but these are all things you want to consider when we're talking about park hopping in 2021. And of course, the biggest question I get right now regarding Disney World, regarding going to a theme park in 2021, in this era we're all living in, is it still magical? Is it still fun? Yes, it's very, very different. And I have continued to say, if this is your first visit, your big anniversary celebration, your once in a lifetime trip, I personally would still tell you to wait. Wait until fireworks come back, wait until more entertainment's available, wait until your dream resort is open. However, if you are someone that has come frequently, or some of the entertainment and characters and that sort of thing isn't important to you, yes, it is still magical. Of course it is. It's still Disney. You're still seeing Mickey Mouse. You're still getting to ride some of the greatest attractions in the world. It just looks a little bit differently. So I tell you, I cannot I cannot answer this question for you. I can't decide whether or not coming to Disney World in a wet mask wearing 2021 is right for you and your family. Only you can decide that. All we can do is show you what it's like to be here, share our experiences with you in the videos and on the blog and on social media, and you can decide. But yes, it is still magical to be at Walt Disney World. Well, friends, that is a wrap on my What's Disney World Like in 2021 video. Hopefully I answered some questions for you. What other questions do you have? Definitely leave them in the comments. In the meantime, friends, make sure to rate, review, subscribe to our channel, follow us on social media at AllEars.net. And until next time, y'all, I'm Molly, and it's been magical. Want to see more of my videos? Click over here. Want to subscribe? You can do that right here. And also, ring that notification bell to make sure you get instantly notified anytime we post a new video. Thanks for following. See you real soon.